Here are the most iconic anime heroes who turned into villains. Starting with Eren Yeager. How does someone who swore to destroy the monsters become the worst monster in human history? When we first meet Eren, he is not a villain. He is a traumatized child who watches his mother get eaten in front of him. From that moment, his goal feels simple and even heroic. He wants to wipe out the Titans, protect humanity inside the walls, and finally reach the freedom he has been dreaming about his entire life. At the beginning, Eren represents rage, hope, and survival. He is reckless, but you understand him. In his mind, the world is divided between humans and monsters, but everything begins to change after the basement reveal. When Eren learns the truth from his father's memories, his entire view of the world starts to collapse. The enemy is no longer just mindless titans outside the walls. The enemy is humanity beyond the sea, a world that fears Eldians, hates Paradis, and may eventually try to wipe his people out. But the decisive moment comes when he kisses Historia's hand. In that moment, Eren sees fragments of the future. He realizes that the path ahead may already be set, and that every choice seems to lead toward the same horrifying conclusion. If he wants to protect Paradis and the people he loves, he may have no other option except to become the monster himself. After this, Eren's first major step into villain territory is Liberio. He infiltrates Marley, uses Falco to deliver his messages, hides beneath a civilian building, and waits for Willy Tybur's speech. Then, in the middle of a crowded internment zone, he transforms. The result is horrifying. Eren kills Willy Tybur, destroys the building above him, crushes civilians in the chaos, and turns a public event filled with families, children, and Eldians into a battlefield. Even if Marley was preparing to declare war on Paradis, Eren chooses a method that guarantees innocent people will die. Then comes the rumbling. Eren unleashes the Wall Titans and begins a global massacre, wiping out most of humanity outside Paradis. At that point, no matter how much pain he went through, Eren is no longer just a victim. He becomes the disaster he once wanted to destroy. But what makes Eren tragic is that he does not do this simply because he enjoys killing. In his mind, he is trapped. Either the outside world destroys Paradis and his friends, or he destroys the outside world first. So he chooses his friends over humanity. That is what makes Eren's fall so powerful. He starts as a boy desperate for freedom, but by the end, he becomes a slave to fate, violence, and the future he believed he could not escape. Next, we have Obito Uchiha. What happens when the boy who dreamed of becoming Hokage becomes the man who starts the Fourth Great Ninja War? In the beginning, Obito was almost like another version of Naruto. He was loud, emotional, and constantly trying to prove himself. But underneath all of that, he had a genuinely good heart. His loyalty was also the core of who he was. Obito is the one who said that those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. And when Kakashi was in danger, Obito lived by those words. He sacrificed himself to save him. At that point, Obito looked like a true hero, but then everything changed. After surviving, Obito returns with hope still inside him. He wants to see his friends again. He wants to protect Rin and Kakashi, but instead, he arrives just in time to see Rin die on Kakashi's Chidori. He does not know that Rin chose to die in order to protect the village. All he sees is the girl he loved being killed by the friend he trusted most. And even when he later learns the truth, it does not save him. Because by then, Obito's hatred is no longer only about Kakashi or Rin. It is about the entire shinobi world that created a situation where Rin had to die in the first place. From that point on, Obito's fall becomes horrifying. He attacks his own village using the Nine Tails, causing the deaths of Minato and Kushina, and leaving Naruto as an orphan. He manipulates the Akatsuki from the shadows and helps push the ninja world toward chaos. Then he goes even further. Obito declares the Fourth Great Ninja War, a conflict that leads to the deaths of thousands. But what makes Obito tragic is that he does not see himself as a villain. In his mind, reality is broken. The real world only creates pain, war, betrayal, and loss. So his answer is the infinite Tsukuyomi, a dream world where nobody has to suffer. That is what makes his transformation so tragic. Obito becomes the dark reflection of Naruto. Suguru Geto. Geto had a moral code. He believed that people with power had a responsibility to protect people without it. While Gojo was arrogant and careless, Geto was the one who sounded more mature, more thoughtful, and more human. But that belief slowly starts to break. The turning point begins with Riko Amanai. She is a young girl who wants to live her own life. And just when it seems like she might get that chance, Toji kills her right in front of him. That moment damages Geto deeply, but what happens after makes it worse. Instead of mourning her like a person, the cult members clap and celebrate her death. Geto sees normal humans cheering for the murder of an innocent girl. From there, his entire worldview begins to rot. Then comes the endless cycle of missions. Sorcerers keep dying, curses keep appearing, and every curse exists because of the negative emotions of normal humans. To Geto, it starts to feel like sorcerers are endlessly cleaning up a mess created by people who do not even understand or respect them. The final break happens when he finds 2 young sorcerer girls being abused and locked in a cage by a village of normal humans. At that point, Geto stops seeing non-sorcerers as people worth protecting. He kills the villagers. And from that moment, Geto is no longer just a broken sorcerer. He becomes a curse user with a mission: to create a world only for sorcerers, even if that means killing every normal human in the process. And to be honest, his plan actually makes twisted sense. Since curses are born entirely from the negative emotions of normal humans, eliminating them means curses would stop existing completely. Next we have Pain. Nagato is another Naruto character who starts with a dream of peace but ends up becoming a villain. As a child, Nagato loses his parents because of war, but even after that, he does not immediately become evil. With Yahiko and Konan, he follows Jiraiya's teachings and wants to create a world where children do not have to suffer the way they did. At first, Nagato represents hope and believes peace is still possible, but that hope dies when Hanzo and Danzo trap them, and Yahiko sacrifices himself in front of Nagato to save Konan. That moment completely destroys Nagato's belief in peaceful ideals. After that, Nagato becomes Pain. He takes over the Akatsuki, hunts the tailed beasts, kills Jiraiya, and eventually destroys most of the Hidden Leaf Village with Shinra Tensei. But what makes Pain interesting is that he does not see himself as evil. He still wants peace, but his idea of peace becomes twisted. He believes people will only stop fighting if they experience pain so massive that they become afraid of war. Next, we have Kokushibo. Kokushibo is one of the clearest examples of someone who started on the side of humanity, but ended up becoming one of the monsters he was supposed to fight. Before he became Kokushibo, he was Michikatsu Tsugikuni, the twin brother of Yoriichi, and at first he was not a demon. He was a samurai, a warrior, and eventually a demon slayer. But the tragedy of Michikatsu is that his downfall does not begin with hatred for humanity, it begins with jealousy. Yoriichi was everything Michikatsu wanted to be: stronger, faster, more gifted, and naturally blessed in a way Michikatsu could never match. No matter how hard he trained, he always felt like he was standing in his brother's shadow. That jealousy slowly poisoned him. Instead of accepting his own path, Michikatsu became obsessed with surpassing Yoriichi, but as a human, he had limits. When he awakened the Demon Slayer mark, he realized it came with a curse. He would die before the age of 25. He was running out of time to surpass his brother, and that terrified him. That is where Muzan gives him the offer that destroys him. Michikatsu chooses to become a demon. From that moment, he throws away his humanity, his family, and his duty as a demon slayer. He becomes Kokushibo. In the end, Kokushibo's story is not just about a hero becoming a villain. It is about a man so desperate to surpass his brother that he sacrificed his soul and still never escaped his shadow. Light Yagami. Light Yagami is different from the others because he does not start as a traditional hero, but at the beginning he does believe he is doing something heroic. When Light first finds the Death Note, he is a brilliant student who is disgusted by crime and corruption. In his mind, the world is rotten and the justice system is too weak to fix it. At first, his goal sounds almost noble. He wants to remove criminals, protect innocent people, and create a peaceful world where no one has to live in fear. But the moment he starts killing, that sense of justice begins to twist. Light does not just punish criminals. He starts enjoying the power. He starts seeing himself as the only person worthy of judging the world. And when people challenge him, he does not treat them like obstacles to justice. He treats them like enemies who must be erased. That is where Light's fall becomes clear. He kills Linda L. Taylor just because he insults him on television. He manipulates Misa, uses people around him like tools, and slowly becomes willing to sacrifice anyone if it protects his identity as Kira. Light still believes he is the good guy. He does not think of himself as a murderer. He thinks of himself as a god building a better world. In his mind, every lie, every manipulation, and every death is justified because the final result will be peace. But that is exactly what makes him a villain. Next we have Dabi. Dabi is one of the clearest examples of a broken child becoming a villain. Before he became Dabi, he was Toya Todoroki, Endeavor's oldest son. At first, Toya was not evil. He was a child who wanted his father's approval more than anything. He trained because he wanted to make Endeavor proud, but that dream slowly turned into pain. When Endeavor realized Toya's body could not handle his own flames, he pushed him aside and focused on creating a better successor. To Toya, that felt like being abandoned by the one person he was trying hardest to impress. That rejection destroyed him. After surviving the accident on Sokoto Peak, Toya came back as Dabi, but he was no longer looking for love or approval. He wanted revenge. As Dabi, he joins the League of Villains, burns people without hesitation, and eventually eventually reveals himself to the world as Endeavor's son, exposing the dark truth behind the Todoroki family. What makes Dabi tragic is that he was not born a monster. He was a child desperate to be seen by his father, but the need for approval turned into hatred, and the boy who once wanted to become Endeavor's pride became the villain created by Endeavor's ambition. And finally, we have Floch Forster. During the charge against the Beast Titan, Floch watches almost everyone around him get slaughtered. He survives one of the most hopeless battles in Attack on Titan, and that experience changes him completely. After that, Floch stops believing in soft ideals. To him, the world is cruel, and only ruthless people are capable of protecting Eldia. That is why he becomes loyal to Eren. Floch becomes one of the main leaders of the Yeagerists, helping turn Eren's supporters into a fascist movement inside Paradise. He helps take control of the island, threatens anyone who stands against Eren, and becomes willing to kill former allies if they get in the way of the rumbling. What makes Floch interesting is that he does not see himself as a villain. He sees himself as a patriot doing what weak people are too afraid to do. But that is exactly why he becomes dangerous, because genocide was never a real solution. Protecting Eldia does not justify wiping out the rest of humanity.